whenever they're ready. Please be seated.
Thank you, Judge. Sir, you look different than earlier. Are you the same Mark Hamilton that says fine before lunch?
I borrowed the suit from the guy at home.
Okay, good. Okay, good. All right. I'm glad you're back. Okay, so where we left off, as a reminder, because we left off sort of right in the middle here. You had explained to the jury that the green circles or pie shapes from this point forward are going to represent Ms. Pace's phone.
Yes.
And the red is going to represent Mr. Chen's phone.
Correct.
In this location, just a brief recap, this map indicates Ms. Pace's travel from her parents' house on 1122 to Tremont Street.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And was there other evidence in this case file that also corroborated that travel?
Yes, ma'am. There's some video looking across the street.
This is State's Exhibit 128. Is this the video you're referring to?
Yes, ma'am.
At the time of this video, was Miss Pace's phone travel corroborative of the location of that vehicle?
Yes, ma'am. And the My Chevy out.
And the My Chevy, that's correct. So, and the My Chevy trip. They all correspond with the same timeline.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 7. Have you seen this before?
Yes, ma'am.
In the early morning hours of 11:23, can you tell the jury where Miss Pace's phone was located?
It is at this coordinate, which is a GPS internal to the phone that sent it. And so it'll be quite accurate, and that is 110 Tremont Street.
Okay, so we're still going chronologically, okay, Mr. Hamilton?
Yes, ma'am.
The next time that we see travel from Mr. Chen is when?
It's the next day.
And is it 11:23 or 11:22?
No, we're into 11:23 now. After she arrived, was late on 22, and then this pin drop starts in the early morning hours.
That's right, I said that wrong, I'm sorry. So after this event, when is the next time we see Mr. Chen's phone traveling?
I was in the morning time. I have to.
At some point in the early morning, well, in the morning hours of 11:23, did Mr. Chen's phone travel to the Walmart?
Yes.
To your, from your memory, was that travel around 10:40 in the morning?
I believe it was, yes, ma'am.
Now, did Miss Pace's cell phone travel from Tremont to Walmart as well?
It did.
Were you able to see Miss Pace's phone and Mr. Chen's phone at the Walmart based on cell hawk information?
Yes, ma'am.
That morning?
I was.
Okay, and have you seen this video that is State's Exhibit 18?
Yes.
Does this video corroborate Mr. Chen's cell phone location data?
It does, yes, ma'am.
Do you see Miss Pace in this video?
I do not.
And then again, Exhibit 18 is depicts Mr. Chen checking out at the Walmart. Does this video also corroborate Mr. Chen's cell phone records?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see Miss Pace in this video?
I do not.
Okay. All right, so now we've seen those videos, but this is actually some cell hawk interpretation. We explained to the jury what we're seeing here based on the videos that we just saw and the testimony you just gave.
Yes, and just to clarify, these circles are not like the ones we saw where a tower is that was showing an Omni antenna. These are actually the estimated location from the two cellular providers, which were T-Mobile in the red and Verizon in the green. Two completely different carriers are both estimated almost identical accuracy and location, and the center of that is the Walmart.
Is this how you were able to testify that both of their phones were at the Walmart around 10:40 to 11 o'clock on
Yes,
11/23?
that and they both leave Tremont and kind of travel together, so it might not be exactly matched, but they're leaving and arriving about the same time.
Thank you, sir. The next slide is around the same time, also near the Walmart. Can you explain to the jury why this looks different, why the red dots are smaller?
Well, just at that time and period, there wasn't anything from the face phone, but what's even better is the tiny dots are much more accurate. So they know you're on these arcs by the time it takes the signal to travel, and where the arcs intersect is basically where they estimate you to be. And when you start getting these small, it's usually pretty accurate. Like we saw, the big circle covered all the Walmart and some surrounding stores. Now we're in the parking lot.
When the arcs intersect, you said that is when we can have a better idea of exactly where the
Yes.
parties are.
Yes, it's not always 100% accurate, but the one thing to remember, you have to be in the coverage of that antenna on that tower, so you're not going to be way on the other side of town. It might put you in the wrong parking lot, but it's not going to put you way off.
But the lines you would testify are arcs from the towers?
Yes, that's the range, so that's how they get this. And on the record, you'll see like 0.68 miles. It's usually plus or minus a 10. And that's how long it took the signal to travel from that tower at the speed of light. They measure it that fast. It's really blink of an eye, but it works.
Will we continue to see the arcs throughout your testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so again, at 10:47, you have documented in Cell Hawk, both of their phones are at or near the Walmart, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so let's keep going chronologically. Do you recall where the next location in Hamilton County Mr. Chen's phone travels to?
I believe he went up towards 7th Street.
Do you know, sir, how many minutes it would take for a vehicle to drive from Walmart to Suck Creek Road?
Just 5 minutes, I'm guessing. I didn't actually measure that one, but this is the Walmart. And you literally just have to go up to this road right here and turn. It's very close.
So we see those little dots again, is that right?
Yes.
And is that indicative of pretty reliable, more accurate location tracking?
It is, except That's a very steep canyon with the river cut through it, and the tower is up on top of that mountain. And sometimes in here, I've worked more than one case in that area, the signal will actually bounce off of one of the walls and come back, which can put you further away. So, like you see these dots up here, that's on the bluff of the mountain. There's no way to get there from here. It's quick. That's where the signal is bounced, so it's measuring the time that's too long. So the average of them, and most of them are on the road, which makes sense, but then all of a sudden it'll jump up here and back. That's due to that really rough terrain. Again, this isn't GPS, so there. But when you've seen hundreds of cases, you start, and like I know up in there that they're going to, some of the long ones are going to be, generally they're long, like up on this mountain, there's no way to jump up there. You got to drive up like a bunch of crooked roads.
So topography can sometimes affect
can.
cell hawk data.
Yes.
Okay. And
Works
then,
much better out in the metropolitan open areas, and when you get up in the canyon, it's a little tough.
can you again highlight with your pointer where Sup Creek Road is?
So Sup Creek Road starts right here, and it goes down the river, and there's basically a vertical wall of rock, pretty much. It's very skinny down there, and it goes on and on. But you just hit the road, and then the mountain coming down to it, and water. There's a few houses on either side, but that's about it.
Do you recall at this point where Jasmine's phone is?
It is not showing up at this time.
So what does that mean?
It just means it's not communicating with the network for whatever reason. Could be that it just didn't need to, or it could be turned off. Could be in airplane mode. Could be wrapped in aluminum foil, but it's not leaving a trail at the moment.
If a phone is off, does it leave a trail of location data?
No, ma'am.
Okay. If the SIM card is removed, does the location data, is it erupted?
It is. It is.
I'm sorry, interrupted?
Yes.
Okay. So there's multiple reasons why a phone can go, let's call it, for now on, let's call it going black.
Yes.
Right?
That's a good time.
Okay. So that's around 11:05. Can you tell the jury where the next location is that Mr. Chen traveled?
It's back to the Walmart area.
Okay, and do you recall how long he stays at the Walmart area on that time? At that time?
Not off the top of my head. It wasn't very long.
At some point, does he travel back to the Walgreens?
He does.
At what time does he travel back to Walgreens?
I think it was around 11.
Could you refer to your note to
Yes,
refresh
ma'am.
your
I
notes
just-
to
I didn't
refresh your
memorize all those
recollection?
times.
It's okay.
Yeah, I've got the notes here. Let's see here. We are up to the minimum 5 slide. So the next one's 141. I think these slides you got in that order in there.
Well, let me just ask you this. We can clear it up.
Slide.
At some point later in the day, is Mr. Chen at Walgreens?
He is around 140, 141.
One second, Judge.
Yes, ma'am.
And in your review, can you see the, can you point your direction in the screen's direction again?
Yes.
All right, so what is this, what's the jury seeing right here?
That is the Walgreens down on the North Shore, which is underneath those, basically underneath those red circles.
And on that red pie shape over there, what's the time saved?
142. This is probably 5 minutes of information there. I'm putting the time like at the first, but he may say, if you stay there a few minutes, there'll be more circles.
Okay, and then, reviewing evidence in this case, were you able to locate any records that indicate that Mr. Chen was at the Walgreens at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
The state, on the screen is State's Exhibit 20. What time in Eastern Standard Time is that military time?
1342 be 142 Chattanooga.
So the cell hawk records that you've shown to the jury of Mr. Chen being at the Walgreens at 141 are supported by video evidence?
Yes.
Okay. Let's move to the 3 o'clock hour when we see Jasmine's phone pop up again. Well, let me ask you this. Where is Jasmine's phone at around 142?
I don't recall where that one was.
You don't recall if it was black or if it was
I
on?
think it was just off at that time because it shows it back up here a little bit.
Okay, so let's go to the 3 o'clock hour. Do you recall at the 3 o'clock hour any activity on either of their phones?
Yes, ma'am. I believe they show back up at the long one. At 350, both of them are actually in the downtown area. In the Chattanooga, not in Richmond.
Refer to the screen here. What are we seeing on Cell Hawk in the 350 hour? 350, 4 o'clock hour.
So just to orient you, Tremont would be probably right up in here. It's across the river. But this is downtown where we are now, and these two phones are both using similar towers. And it was, what I saw, it traveled from right to left, so heading from east to west. But this phone had been on for a while, and the red one was off, and then right about here, the red one comes on, and both of them show up at the same time in this downtown area. And this is all happening in the 350s. Some of these, those are estimated locations. These are showing the tower, but they didn't have a location.
Is it your opinion that at this time both of their phones are in the downtown area shown on the screen?
It is. They were traveling at about the same time in the same place.
Are you aware of any activity that you found on both of their cellular records around this time?
Yes, ma'am, there's a text message sent right here.
And who was that text message from and who was it to?
It was from Jason Chen to Jasmine Pace.
At 4:03 p.m., based on your review of the T-Mobile and the Verizon records, Mr. Chen texted Jasmine, "Hey, are we still good for dinner tonight?"
That's correct.
T-Mobile records. Approach me with one piece of paper. If you could review that and tell me if you've seen it before.
Yes, ma'am.
Where is this document from?
It's from the phone forensic.
The
It's the forensic download of Mr.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Hamilton. I've asked you already, but were you able to review the forensic download from Jason Chen's phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go through items on that phone?
I did.
Did it include this item?
It did.
And can you describe to the jury, they're going to see it, but it's in a different format. What format is that?
That's Celebrate. That's the tool that we use to download in the process the data coming out. So this is a Celebrate screenshot of the one page on
Your Honor, I'd ask that this be admitted as the state's next exhibit.
it.
Mr. Hamilton, on the screen behind you, this is what you're looking at.
Yes.
And
Yes.
does Cellbrite note the time that the text was sent?
It does right here, 16:03 TC minus 5, which would be 4:03 p.m. Chattanooga time.
Okay, and at the below it says body. Is that the body of the? Is that the text message?
Yes.
Okay.
It is, and this is who it's to. And then you infer this is Jason Chen's cell phone, so the from, they don't populate it there, but it's from him to her. And that's, hey, are we still good for dinner tonight?
All right, and in your review of the discovery in this case, did you come across another piece of evidence that corroborates both the location data and the cell phone, the text message
Yes, ma'am.
from the forensic download?
There, I did.
Showing exhibit 121 to the witness. Now, you can see this text message on the screenshot, but can you explain again why this says Wednesday at 3:03 p.m. and this one would indicate 4:03 p.m. in Eastern Standard Time?
Yes, ma'am. The reason is that screenshot was taken later and the phone was up in Nolensville and it was on Central Time. So the time, they automatically adjust to what time zone you're in as you're driving across the country. So the screenshot itself was taken up there, so it adjusted the times to Central in that phone. But we know it's forensically, the phone does everything in UTC time, so these reports coming off of Cellbrite are accurate, and the records coming off of the provider are in UTC generally. So that describes that discrepancy just because of where the phone was when the screenshot was made of the message.
Are you able to tell the jury, so you testified, we're going back, you testified that at this time, approximately 3:50 something, that both of their phones showed back up in downtown Chattanooga, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to tell the jury if Miss Pace's phone had been on immediately before that, or is this the first time you see it back on?
No, it had been on for a little while.
Okay.
His was off and hers was on, and it was driving around the city.
Is it fair to say hers was coming off and on
Yes.
for the first part of the day on 11/23?
It was. It went dark, and then it reappeared and rode around, and his was off, and then his and hers just come on almost exactly the same time. Flip-flop.
And to be clear with what you testified to a moment ago, Nolensville, Tennessee is on Central Standard Time, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And Chattanooga is Eastern Standard Time.
It is.
Okay.
And
Are-
the phone, the forensic tools tell you what time zone it's set to, and it was, I guess it was recovered in Nolensville and secured. It was actually processed down here, but it was still in Central Time when the report was made. But the report is always in UTC time, and so I have to go in the report tools and adjust it to what time zone I want, so that you don't have to do a bunch of math.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
After this, did Mr. Chen go back to Suck Creek
He did.
immediately after?
I don't think so. Well, he travels, it's not on that picture, but he kind of travels across the bridge and over that way. But
He goes from downtown, would it have been back to the North Shore, you're saying?
yes, ma'am, it was just a few minutes off.
And did he travel back to the Suck Creek area?
He did.
Okay. What are we seeing in this photo?
So that is that same road we saw just zoomed in a little more at Suck Creek. And so that's the body location up at the top, and that's him coming down that road again.
Would this be the second time on 11/23 that he's in the Suck Creek Road area?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, does he then go back to the area of 110 Tremont?
I think he went to, yes, he goes to Tremont.
Do you recall what time that was?
Not off the top of my head.
It's okay. These records are complex. Feel free to
Yeah,
look at your
sorry, I
notes.
didn't memorize them. It's 5:08 p.m. is when I see them.
Do these records reflect what you just testified to?
I do, and something to point out, see how this group gets a little bit north of him? I would, from long experience and having to locate, especially missing people by their phone, those dots I belong down here, they're just on that arc, and the inaccuracy of the pivot. I don't believe he was moving because it'll jump in seconds, and there's no physical way to do that. So these belong down here just in my professional. He's in there, he's not driving around.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall when, how long Mr. Chen is here in the area of Tremont after 5:08 p.m.?
It was 50 minutes, I think.
Okay, and did Mr. Chen's phone begin to leave the area of Tremont around 6 p.m.?
It did.
Okay. In the course of your reviewing the discovery in this case, have you seen this video?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna, this is State's Exhibit 129. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger on the next slide for the jury. You reviewed this video, sir?
I did.
Is the time connected to this video approximately 5:59 p.m.?
Yes, ma'am.
And then is there another video, Mr. Hamilton, in which you can see what appears to be Mr. Chen's vehicle leaving Tremont Street?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that just a couple of minutes later?
It is.
Is this a screenshot from that video?
Yes, ma'am. That's a still screenshot of it.
Did you place that arrow on this?
I did, just to point out where the vehicle's at to start out in the video.
And Your Honor, that would still be Exhibit 129. It's from the same video. Do Mr. Chen's phone records corroborate him leaving Tremont at almost exactly this time?
They do.
Can you describe for the jury what we see here on the screen?
So that is the start down in here around 110, and then the traveling, and then 27 highways, most direct route, and by the timing, I believe that's what it took. So that's basically him leaving out and getting up on the highway.
Does Highway 27, can Highway 27 lead you to Sub Creek Road?
Yes, ma'am, it can.
Is that the direction in which Mr. Chen's cell phone travels?
I believe so. By the timing, it would almost have to be.
Does Mr. Chen's phone arrive at the Sub Creek area around 13 minutes later?
It does.
Can you please, again, describe what we're seeing for the jury and show the jury where Sub Creek Road is?
So this is that highway that we just saw a little lower down here, and then you get off, and these again are going to be close. A lot of factors there, but the dots are traveling down Sub Creek Road towards the body location.
How accurate are the dots in this photograph?
The size of them, I don't remember the meters, but it's pretty small. Those are pretty good, but we know he's not driving through the middle of the Komatsu plant. So again, this is not GPS, but the average of all of it is pretty accurate. If you're moving fast, it's usually not as accurate as if you're sitting from it. The problem here is there's not as many towers, and the more towers that are involved in the map, the better. And when you get in that canyon, you're kind of on your own with one or two. But the general travel direction is good.
Let's move forward to 2 minutes later. 6:15 on 11/23. Now describe for the jury why this looks a little bit different.
So this is just it's zoomed in more. These range rings that are on further out are where I was talking about it bouncing off of the vertical cliffs, and it jumps bounce back and forth. But if you average all that together, it puts you pretty close.
And you testified about how long it would take to get from Tremont to certain locations, but did you actually look at anything on Google Maps to help the jury understand the distance between certain locations?
I did. I just ran a address from travel trip from point A to point B and let Google tell me, because they know the speeds and average travel times.
Is this a screenshot from the Google Maps?
It is.
And it shows that it takes how long to get from Tremont to Sup Creek?
13 minutes.
Does that corroborate the location data that you retrieved from Cellhawk?
It does.
Do you recall what time Mr. Chen departs the Sup Creek area?
It was not long. He was 6:33 p.m. when he leaves out of there.
All right, and do you recall, and this is him leaving.
Yes, so these dots are stuck. There's no good way to do this in court, but they're laid down consecutively, like in a video, and he's going out now.
Okay, so based on this photo, you can tell that he's actually leaving the location of the body.
Yes, so this dot is older than that dot. So as you're going that way, which is at 6:33, he's headed out.
Do you recall where Mr. Chen's phone goes from this location?
It goes to the Walmart in Red Bank, same Walmart we saw earlier.
This is the same Walmart that he was at earlier in the day?
Yes, ma'am.
That's nearby, is that correct?
It is.
Okay, and is there, I apologize, here we are. Tell the jury what we're seeing. This looks a little bit different. Looks like it's just zoomed in.
Yeah, he was in the area of Walmart. There's the super center down here at the bottom. Again, these dots can get inaccurate, especially like even in that location, they can be off some, but he's near the Walmart. And
do you recall if there's anything significant about Mr. Chen's phone being back at the Walmart again?
There is, because Jasmine Pace's phone reappears at the Walmart.
So when you say reappears, what do you mean?
It's been dark for this whole time period, and now it shows back up.
And can you look at the screen, please?
Yes, ma'am.
What does that represent?
That's the estimated location of Jasmine Pace's cell phone by Verizon, and it's pretty much centered on Walmart, and it's 6:41.
Is this location the last location for several days that you see Miss Pace's phone?
The location is, but not the time.
So, tell the jury what you mean.
I see it again here in a minute, but
Okay.
it's never seen anywhere else after.
Okay. Is this what you were talking about?
Yes, ma'am. So
Oh, okay.
6:49.
You-
Same location.
A few minutes later, it's detected again near the Walmart.
Yes,
And then does it go dark?
it does.
One second, Judge. Based on Ms. Pace's cell phone records, the Verizon records, were you also able to corroborate that her phone went dark around this time?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell the jury what we're seeing in this photo?
So this is from Verizon. It's part of those records we've been seeing. And this tells you a date and time. These numbers, I think we'll go over those in a few minutes, but these are kind of like serial numbers that tell you what phone it is and what model and make. But basically, this is the cell sites. And right there, you notice there's just blanks. Well, there's incoming calls or texts, and they go nowhere because there's no tower connected because the phone's not on the network anymore. So the activity showing up is actually inbound. And the phone doesn't acknowledge it, so you get this blank, just a blank column.
And you see that the next, under the green highlighting, the next activity appears to be 11/26/2022. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. It jumps up to the 26th.
Based on your review of the file, do you know why that would be?
I do, because her family reactivated, they got a new SIM card for that number and reactivated a phone. And so the new activity starts showing up.
After this, do you recall if Mr. Chen's phone went back to the area of Walgreens?
Of Walgreens, yeah, probably good.
Sir, do you know approximately how far it is from the Walmart to the Walgreens?
It was, I think it was a 12, 13 minutes.
Did you look it up on
I
Google for
did.
the jury?
It's on Google. It was
Can you refer to the
9
screen?
minutes. Yes, ma'am.
This is just from a simple Google Maps search.
It is. The addresses are right here.
Have you seen this video?
Yes, ma'am.
And what time would that be in the right-hand corner?
In local Chattanooga, that is 7 p.m.
Exhibit 21, Your Honor. Does this video of Mr. Chen at the Walgreens at 7 o'clock corroborate his cell phone records?
It does.
And at some point, a while later, do we see Mr. Chen back at Tremont?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall what time he arrived back at Tremont?
I don't, but it wasn't long after that.
In your review of the evidence, were you able to see this video?
Yes.
Okay. Would you agree that that person appears to be leaving a building?
Yes, ma'am.
That would be a screenshot, is that correct?
It is.
All right, and now we go back to phone records. Did Mr. Chen's phone indicate that he was leaving the Tremont apartments around this time?
It did.
Around the exact same time that he is seen leaving the Tremont apartment building, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Just a minute later.
And do you recall where he went?
It goes to 900 Mountain Creek.
And is there other evidence that you've reviewed that would corroborate his travel to 900 Mountain Creek Road?
There is the camera that's across the street from Tremont. And my Chevy house.
And the My Chevy app you
Yes,
said?
ma'am.
Exhibit 2, you can see that Exhibit 2 indicates a start time of 8:27 and an end time of 8:45, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Does this corroborate Mr. Chen's cell phone records?
It does.
And were you able to, using his cell phone records, actually map him in the direction of 900 Mountain Creek Road?
I was able to map that. Yes, ma'am.
And then you mentioned this video, this is Exhibit 129 from Arctic camera footage, 11:23. Why is this significant, sir?
Because you can see the Pace vehicle, and I can make out the hat and the hoodie that I saw in the ring camera in the hallway.
It's your opinion that the person in this car is the same person in the hallway at that apartment building?
Yes, ma'am.
This video jumps a little bit, but are we seeing the white Chevrolet pull out
Right here.
of Tremont Street?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and is this a screenshot?
It is. That's when he's turning that corner, and the colors aren't showing up on this display very well, but you can make out the red in that hat and the gray hoodie.
Do Mr. Chen's cell phone records corroborate that he would be leaving Tremont Street at this time?
They do.
And did you Google map for the jury approximately how long it would take to get from Tremont Street to 900 Mountain Creek Road?
I did.
If you can look at the screen for me. Approximately how long would that take?
It's a 12-minute trip.
Mr. Chen left the apartment around 8:30. Exhibit 24, have you seen this video before, Mr. Hamilton?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is this video taken from the Mountain Creek Road apartment buildings?
It is. Right here.
Does that appear to be a white SUV?
Yes, ma'am.
At this point in time, is Mr. Chen's cell phone location data showing that he is in or around 900 Mountain Creek Road?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And then have you also seen the next part of this video that shows what looks like or has been testified to a Prius pulling into this parking lot?
Yes, ma'am.
What time does that Prius pull into the parking lot?
It's 8:49.
Mr. Hamilton, I'm going to approach you with 2 documents. Can you look at those for me? Do you recognize those?
I do.
What are these documents?
Those are extracted from Mr. Chen's cell phone by Celebrate, and they're pieces of an app. Oh, it's a list app.
Okay,
That's
so-
limited to messaging that it's
So these were extracted in the cell phone download, correct?
correct from Mr. Chen's cell phone.
That's why you said Cellbrite, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and when you say from an app, what does that mean?
So I'm sure most of us are familiar with smartphones. You can install apps, and even if you uninstall that app, most of them leave pieces around your phone where they store stuff. And in this particular case, there's pieces of an app for Lyft to get a car ride, and it left some telltale messages, and that's what the
Your Honor, I ask that we move into evidence and citizens.
too easy.
Now, you just testified to Lyft, 218, Judge? I'll have you look at the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
This would be the first page of Exhibit 218. Now, can you tell the jury, while looking at this, can you describe for the jury what you mean by an app and how we know that it's from the Lyft app?
Okay. The reason we know it's in this database tells us where it's stored at. It's telling us it was using data on the network. But what's interesting is it's Zim writing. So I learned something in this case. That was a computer nerd, and he wanted to go see his girlfriend in college in California. He couldn't afford it, so he created an app to get people to pick him up and take him to see his girl. And his name was Zimmer. He started that in 2012, and so it was called Zimride for a year, and then they changed the name to Lyft. But that's a computer programmer, and that's where Zimride came from. So
Okay.
it's still called internally because I guess that was their early software. It's still called Zimride, but it's Lyft.
And what would the timestamp there be indicative of?
So UTC 5 is Eastern West Chattanooga time, and that is at 2039, which is 8:39 for non-military folks.
And then the second page of 218 shows the same thing, except now we've got a different time on there. Is that correct?
Yes, this is actually location coming in, and it's at 2050, which would be 8:50 p.m. So we're 11 minutes later.
How do you know it's a notification coming in?
It says location feedback notification.
Okay, and where is Mr. Chen's cell phone at 8:50 p.m.?
It's in the parking lot of 900 Mountain Creek on the corner right beside the parking lot.
Does this map reflect that testimony?
Yes, so this is the whole parking lot. And it's showing him right there on the main street.
this point, does Mr. Chen's phone appear to travel back to the Tremont Apartments?
It does.
How long of a trip again would that be, Mr. Hamilton?
It's 12.
It's on the screen.
12 minutes.
Are you able to tell us at what time both the gray Prius and Mr. Chen's cell phone arrived back at Tremont Street?
Yeah, I think it was about 12 minutes later. So.
Is there video evidence that
There is,
corroborates
yeah.
this as well?
That same Arctic camera catches it.
Exhibit 129.
Yes, ma'am, at 9:02. And we left at 8:50, so 12 minutes. And there's the Prius.
And does this video corroborate Mr. Chen's cell phone records?
It does. His records coming around at the same time. And they're stopping and putting the hazards on and letting somebody out. But you'll see them kind of run right up in here. And
Actually,
that's a zoom of it there.
Yeah, I think this is a video that zooms in on it. Does that person appear to have a hoodie on?
They did.
And at this point in time, are Mr. Chen's phone records showing that he is back at his apartment on Tremont Street?
They are.
All right. The next question I ask you is significant. Where was Mr. Chen's cell phone from this time on 11/23 until midday on 11/25?
It was here.
It was at his apartment
Yes.
the entire time.
Yes.
Didn't go anywhere.
No.
Would you agree that that's basically a day and a half?
It is. Yes, ma'am.
Now, you testified earlier that you testified to the jury what the difference between a SIM card and a cell phone is,
Yes.
correct? Are you aware in this case that Ms. Pace's SIM card was located at some point, and I apologize, this is the slide that shows Mr. Chen back at Tremont, is that correct?
It is.
Okay. Now, are you aware that this was found in Mr. Chen's possessions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and this is 167-2, State's Exhibit. Have you seen this photo before?
I have.
Have you also seen the forensic report that was extracted by the digital forensics unit
Yes,
from
ma'am.
this SIM card?
I have.
Now you're seeing Exhibit 201 next to Exhibit 167-2.
Correct.
The SIM card report shows that, well, what does the SIM card report show?
So on this slide, what I'm showing is it's called ICCID, and you can read it there, Integrated Circuit Card Identifier. It's all these are they're like serial numbers. That's what's printed on the outside. That's an ICCID. Electronically, this is extracted by Celebrite, so that nobody typed anything in there. That number matches that number, so that tells me this report is on the device that they physically took a picture of. There's only one of these in the world with that number because your phone would get mixed up with somebody, so you can't have any duplicates. So that tells me this report's valid, and it matches what they found up in Nolan's.
Now, for your purposes, is there another significant number on this forensic report?
There is.
And what is that?
It'll be the, well, two of them actually. So,
This Exhibit 201 still,
yeah,
Judge.
the MC is kind of an internal number on that card that tells them,
MC, and you're saying
Yeah, that's-
IMSI.
yeah, International Mobile Subscriber Identity. Nah, that's how you show up on their network. You're not the phone number, you're actually an MC, and then they translate. I know it's a little complicated, but another unique number that's only going to be in that card, and it matches this is from Verizon records. So now I'm looking at to see if the forensic download of the physical card matches the records that were sent by Verizon, and it does because the entity matches. So now we know the card is the right card, we know we did the right phone, and we know we got the right records. They all match. So, and there's another number that's kind of important.
That's right. It says subscriber MSISDN. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what does that stand for?
So that's the Mobile Station International Subscriber Directory number, which we all call my phone number. That's your phone number. So it's right down here, and it's, when they do the whole thing, it'll always have a 1 because the United States is period code 1. But that's her phone number. So that can change on that card. You can change phone numbers on the same SIM card. You can have SIM cards with more than one phone number, but in this case, that's her phone number and that's her number.
For your purposes, is the IMEI also significant?
It is.
All right, let's talk on the screen behind you. Let's talk. What's the IMEI?
So this number is basically engraved into your phone. It has nothing to do with the SIM card. Sometimes it's hidden, but it's on the SIM card holder. But that is the serial number of your hardware, your phone itself. The network gets broadcast to the network, and the reason they do that is that's another way to identify you're the right person. But mainly, if somebody steals your phone, you can report it stolen. They'll put this IMEI, which is your equipment identity, they'll put it on a list and then we'll let that phone back on a network. So that's very important to identify the physical phone, no matter what SIM card is in it.
So to clear this up for the jury, because we've talked about the difference between the phone and the SIM card, are you aware that vehicles have a VIN number?
Yes, ma'am.
That identifies the vehicle itself?
Yes.
Is the IMEI basically like the physical phone's VIN number?
It is. That's a good way to put it.
Look.
You can't change it. It's electronically embedded into it. And there's only one in the world, so that identifies the actual phone, no matter if it's SIM card, no SIM card. That way you'll know whose phone it is.
At some point on 11/25, is there something that happens that involves Jasmine Pace's phone based on your explanation of the IMEI?
Yes, ma'am.
And what would that be?
Jason Chen's SIM card gets put in Jasmine Pace's cell phone, and he starts using her nice bigger iPhone 13.
And can you please refer to the screen and explain to the jury how, based on these telephone records, you know that?
So this is his records from T-Mobile, and here's that IMEI we were talking about, and we have them both from the forensic download and from his records and her records, so I got them 3 different ways. And this IMEI, actually encoded into that IMEI is the make and model, so they can determine that from when it comes in. But that number is unique in the world, and we're right here, you'll see that ends in 2297, and it's an iPhone XR. Right here, it turns into 2742. Now you'll see on the other records there's actually a number after the 2. That's a check sum. So they're 14 digits. Some of them have an extra digit to check them, but you just kind of ignore it. But his phone changes into an iPhone 13 Pro Max, which is what hers is. And that happens on 11/25 at 2:07 in the afternoon.
So is it your opinion that Mr. Chen, on November 25th, 2022, inserted his own SIM card into Jasmine Pace's phone?
Somebody did, yes, ma'am.
Somebody did.
I'm not sure who did it, but they had to physically remove it from the one phone because it was working, and less than a minute later it shows up in another device. So it doesn't take long to plug them in. I'm sure most of us have done that, but yeah, somebody physically moved it from one piece of hardware to the other.
Were you able to see at this time, were you able to view at this time Mr. Chen's last location record?
Yes, ma'am.
And is the slide on the big screen reflective of that?
It is. That's going to be, it's not, the dots are putting him drifting a little bit, but he's down North Chen.
close to Tremont Street?
Yes. Here's, it's hard to see, but that's Tremont, and the dots are, they're floating around in here. And you got, it's 207 and 20, and then 207, 42. And the very last blip from that thing was at 51 seconds, 207, 51.
So we're able to see here his last record from his iPhone, and then are you
Yes.
able to see when his SIM card is inserted into Jasmine Pace's phone?
Yes, ma'am, because that IMEI number changes. And that's,
I'm sorry, there you
oh
go.
yeah, see his IMEI, the 97, that's his iPhone that's been for the entire time. And right in this 1 minute, it changes to what hers has been for this entire time. I think that was,
Is it about to change on the next slide?
it is. And now we're 54 seconds later, and there is her hardware serial number shows up in his T-Mobile records. The phone doesn't care whose phone it is. When you put that SIM card in, it becomes your phone and your phone number. The apps don't change and that kind of stuff, but the phone, the calls, the texts, and all will go with the number in the SIM card. So he came back up on the network under a minute with his same SIM card, her phone.
And do you know how long his SIM card stayed in her phone?
Actually, I think it stayed in there until 11/28.
The day of November 28th,
Yes, ma'am.
2022?
Yes.
And at some point, using Mr. Chen's location records, because let's clarify for the jury.
Sure.
He's got Jasmine's phone, but his SIM card. So does that mean that we are still able to track him based on his phone records?
Yes. Yep, same records. The only thing that changes is the column that says IMEI and the column that says make him on. Everything else is the same.
At some point on, I'm sorry, were you going to say anything else? Okay. On November 25th, 2022, at some point does Mr. Chen travel from Hamilton County to Nolensville, Tennessee?
He does.
And is that reflected on the screen?
It is.
Can you talk to the jury about this, please?
This is just zoomed out, and then I let it not erase the dots, so for the entire trip, so you can just see, you know, if you watched it as a movie, you just see it slowly progressing, you know, the highway, but that is following the interstate back up to Nashville.
And approximately how long does it take him to get from Chattanooga to Nolensville?
I think that one was about a little over 2 hours.
And did you also look up that trip on Google Maps?
I did.
Is it on the screen right now?
Yes, ma'am. That's it.
Would it take approximately 2 hours to get from Chattanooga to Nolensville?
Correct.
Can you see, are you aware of, were you made aware of Mr. Chen's parents' address?
I was. That's actually in the cell records.
Okay. And were you able to identify at what time Mr. Chen arrived at his parents' home on November 25th?
Yes, ma'am. It was 4:50.
Can you explain to the jury what we see here?
So this pin is showing their location in the Ashburn Fort. And this is saying he's using, at 4:51 he's using this side of the tower. At 4:52 he starts using this side. So I think he's transitioned beyond this line right here, the one that's kind of straight down. And then that dot right there is in the 4:50 time frame. So right around 4:50 he's pretty close to Ashburn.
How long does he stay based on the phone records in Nolensville?
He stays until the 27th of,
Where does he go on November 27th?
he comes back to the North Shore in Chattanooga. So this is his travel southbound coming back this way.
Okay, and then this next slide, what does this show?
That shows the entire travel path. What I found, he didn't deviate really, he just came straight in.
What area of town does his phone travel back to in Chattanooga?
He's just a little bit west of Tremont Street. Kind of, we call it Renaissance Park, but he never does actually show up right all the way to Tremont, but he's within a few blocks of it.
that would indicate to the jury that you are able to see with quite a bit of accuracy where a phone is located. Is that correct?
It is.
Because here you know that he doesn't make it all the way back to Tremont, but you know that he's nearby. Is that right?
Correct.
And when we say that you know he is nearby, we mean you know where his phone is.
Phone is correct. not
And his phone was just a few blocks from Tremont Street
Yes.
at, let's see, I've got this, 637
Yes.
on
So
1127. Yeah, so go ahead and map it out for the jury.
here's 110 Tremont. That camera we've been watching is right here on this intersection. And that's just a couple blocks to walk. That phone stays over in this area. And we've got a long history of seeing what it looks like when it's at Tremont. It kind of bounces around the dark, so it never does, it never makes it that far. It stays a little bit, block or two away.
Are you aware, Mr. Hamilton, of what time on November 27, 2022, the Chattanooga Police Department was able to secure Mr. Chen's apartment?
I think it was 10:30.
Will you refer to your notes and see if you can find it in there?
I think, is that still, that slide's not in this slide. I don't recall.
Do you
I don't think I
recall?
have that slide. It was late that evening. I remember it was 10, 11 o'clock.
Let me ask you this. Do you recall that it was after this?
Yes, it was.
Do you recall what time Mr. Chen's phone leaves, well, Ms. Pace's phone with Mr. Chen's SIM card in it leaves the area of Tremont and North Chattanooga?
Yes, it was around 9:30.
And the jury, if you'll remember, is not from Hamilton County. Can you describe for them where Mr. Chen travels to?
So Hickson will be north up here. It's actually a little bit further than where the Pace family lives. It's up towards that way, but it's just north of there. It's a suburb of, kind of blends in with the North Shore, and then it becomes Hickson.
What do we see on this map?
So this is him leaving that area around a little bit west of Fraser Avenue and starting to travel. I'm starting to see movement.
Are you able to see when his phone arrives in Hickson?
I do. It's, like it should be about 10 minutes later he's in that area.
You would describe Hickson as not too far from the North Shore?
No, it's a short drive, depending on traffic.
Do you recall how long Mr. Chen's phone stays in the Hickson area?
Yeah, he stayed for till 10:15.
Can you describe for the jury what we see in this photo?
So he's left Hickson to be up here. He's leaving out and traveling back down. There's some gaps here and there, but he's traveling back to I-24. So here's downtown and Tremont. And there's the interstate. So he's back on I-24 heading back north.
And then where does Mr. Chen's phone take him?
Eventually he gets back to Nolensville to Ashburn, Florida, his parents' house.
Is that where he goes after he leaves Hickson?
It is. He makes I think he makes a few stops on the way, but he gets
Does this map indicate his travel back to Nolensville?
it does.
Why would there be that gap in this one?
That basically be the phone's not communicating with the network for the myriad of reasons we discussed earlier. There's a lot, but it's not on, or it's just, maybe the battery died and had to recharge it.
And then where does Mr. Chen's phone stay for the remainder of the records?
It stays at Nolensville. It's kind of hard to see, but there's the address, the actual house, and almost centered in the estimated location. But yeah, it stays there up through what I saw.
Okay. So, is it your opinion that Mr. Chen's cellular location data matches the other discovery that you have seen in this case?
It is.
The other evidence that you have seen in this
Yes.
case? It is your opinion that Mr. Chen left his apartment on the night of November 23rd, 2022 and drove to Sup Creek Road?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we're done with location data. You testified that you inspected both Mr. Chen's forensic download, correct?
Correct.
How much time did you spend inspecting Mr. Chen's forensic download?
Not a lot because I wasn't allowed to until very recently. I probably have 10, 20, I'd say 10 or 12 hours.
Okay. And how long were you able, what amount of time did you spend with his cellular records from T-Mobile?
Probably 50, 60 hours. And a lot of that was actually converting those oddball videos into standard format so that they play in court and corroborating what a report said. Because I actually went through all the police reports and all and kind of built the case myself, not knowing anything about it. I like to do that first and then talk to the detectives and find out what their story is. So I spent a lot of time reading and trying to wrap my head around what happened just from all the notes that are in the scope.
And you did that in this case?
I did.
You want to pull it up? Keep accessing. Oh, Mr. Hamilton, I'm going to rely on your eyeglasses for this one.
Yeah.
And then we'll zoom in for the jury, but I'm going to ask you to look at this best you can.
Turn the lights on.
Can we turn the lights on? That's actually a good idea.
That helps. Okay. Yeah, I can read that now.
Do you recognize this?
I do.
What is this?
This is a page from the cell providers. This is called SMS, which stands for short message, but this is content of text messages. And sometimes we get those, in this case, that's what we have is different text messages.
And can you tell whose phone those records are from?
I can, it's from Jasmine Pace's phone because it has the EMS ISDN, which tells me the phone number. It has all those numbers we talked about. So I know this is Jasmine's phone, and this is the content of some of her text messages. So it has a date and time with the message and who it's from, who it's to.
Do you recall reviewing these records?
I do.
Your Honor, as these records be entered as the state's next exhibit, granted the Verizon records are already in evidence, but I would like this specific record to be in evidence.
219.
Yes, sir. You can keep it up there.
Okay.
All right, let's see, I tried to do it on this time where I can zoom in so we can help here.
Yeah, that's pretty small.
Oh, wow, I did it. Okay, all right, so are these the records that you were looking at?
Yes, ma'am.
And over to the beginning at the left, you'll see message arrival and final disposition. What does that mean?
That tells you what time it came in, and then if the phone was not on the network, like you turned it off, and then you turn it back on, those messages sit in the hopper And as soon as you turn your phone on, they pop in there. So those times aren't always the same. If they are, it means your phone got the message immediately.
Objection, may I refer?
All right, Mr. Hamilton, one thing, before the bench conference, my colleague reminded me, this actually says T-Mobile SMS content, but is this Verizon SMS content?
It is.
That would be inaccurate, it's actually
It is.
Verizon, correct?
That's correct.
That was my mistake. Okay, let's go back here. Sorry, Judge, it's not like
Got a computer expert on stand.
That's Apple. I don't do that. Oh, man.
Your Honor, can you switch the prosecution on top? Okay, looky there. All right, so here's a larger version of the image. Would you agree?
Yes.
And now, let's see, I'll get a pointer. Okay. Over here, would you agree that this is Jasmine's phone number?
Yes, ma'am. That's Jasmine Pace's phone.
Does this indicate that these are Jasmine Pace's phone records?
It does.
Okay, and I'm going to draw your attention over here. And Paul, if you could scroll down just a little bit. All right, so we're in the time frame of the 4 o'clock hour. Would that be a.m.?
So yes, that's actually the correct time because and the reason you have to know where a switch is, and that's the Duluth switch, which I'm familiar. That's in Atlanta, so those times are actually accurate. So look to Chattanooga time because we're both in the same time zone.
Are these records indicating activity on Miss Pace's phone?
They are their text messages coming in.
Okay, and can you scroll over General Moyle? Okay, so in the 4 o'clock hour, what are we seeing on the right?
So this is the content of the text message. These crazy ones, a lot of them are the emojis, and they have symbols to represent them, which I don't even try to decode that. But these are just plain English that'll show up on the phone. And I'm seeing Truist, which I know to be a bank, codes to get into the account. And there's Credit One Bank, there's Cash Out, there's Truist again. So these are mostly banking apps, and somebody's requesting the passcode to get into it. And it's sending it because it's coming from the app on the phone that has the app on it.
Your Honor, I'd ask you to go back to the meeting. Okay. Now let's go back, those were the Verizon records, let's go back to the T-Mobile records. Are you able to, using the records, are you able to actually search for different types of notifications?
You can, so yes, you can search for, in the celebrate report mostly, but you can also do it in the record. You can search for terms. So you can put a word or a number or whatever, and it'll go find it out through whatever the database report it'll find.
So if you were to enter the word banana, it might show you where banana is used in those records?
Yes.
Okay. said this is in Celebrate, is that correct? No, I'm sorry, what you just described, the searching.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yes. The other one was actually from the record.
I'm going to hand you this document. You recognize that?
I did.
Did you, using Celebrate, search for a word?
Did
What was that word?
tender. I don't know if you put it up there, but yes, we're T-I-N-D-E-R, tender.
Would that confidently pull up all of the Tinder activity on someone's phone?
Yeah, it will, even if there's, the app's no longer there, there's still a piece of crumbs laying around, and it'll find them, so yeah, I think what it did.
Your Honor, I ask that this be State's Exhibit 220.
So
If you can please turn to the screen. This is Exhibit 220. Are these the records you were just looking at?
They are.
All right, we're going to zoom in. On these records, 11/21, can you see that there was activity on Mr. Chen's Twitter?
Yes, there's some cookies, 11:20, and then here's 11:21.
What do cookies mean?
They're like they sound almost, they're like a breadcrumb. It's a piece of information stored on your device that lets them know what time of day. And we get it on web pages. They're part of the revenue stream from ads and things.
Would that indicate activity?
It would,
Okay.
at least the app is running.
And then is there any activity from 11/22/2022?
Coming.
And then what is the first activity from Tinder on 11/23/2022?
This is local time, Chattanooga, 9:51 in the morning on the 23rd.
And then there's more activity at 9:52, is that correct?
Yes,
And 9:52 and 9:52, and then we jump to 12:55.
correct.
And what would Grace indicate?
That would be a name of some contact name that's stored.
And do you see here at 9:52, does Jason send a message on Tinder?
He does. It says like, so I guess we're dating now.
And then does Victoria say something at
Yeah.
21:50?
He does, so they can see who he contacted in the morning, and then this would be at 9:50 at night. So that same evening on the 23rd at 9:50 p.m. Haha, really? Question mark, why is that? Well, that's my opinion.
I did. Okay, apparently it's, at one point, Mr. Hamilton, I mentioned Twitter for clarity. This is Tinder, correct?
Correct, it's Tinder, T-I-N-D-E-R.
And now we're going to go to a zoomed in shot of the bottom of the original page, the Tinder page.
Yes.
This is now 11:28,
Correct.
and is Mr. Chen reaching out to Sarah and asking her what's going on?
He is.
Were these notifications, the notifications from 11/23/2022, were those after Miss Pace's phone had sent a location to another phone?
Yes.
What about the Truist messages and the bank messages? Were those after the PIN
They were.
was sent to someone?
Because her pin was at 2 a.m. and these are 9 a.m., 10, all the way down through, we get down to 9, almost 10 o'clock at night here.
All right. Lastly, I'm going to ask that you look through these records. sorry. I need to show it to defense counsel. I apologize. Can you review those records for me? Do you recognize those?
Yes, ma'am, they're from Celebrate, Jason Chen's cell phone, their messages.
Would that have been discovered through the forensic download of Mr. Chen's phone?
It is.
And did you review those messages?
I did.
Are those text messages?
Yes, they're called iMessages, so there's a distinction.
Sure.
Text messages are sent to a different packet of data, but iMessages are just internet. So you can't read it when they're in the air, but, yeah, so this is specific to an Apple phone. And it's called iMessage.
Your Honor, I'd ask that these records be submitted as collective exhibit 221. I'll staple them.
Yes.
Okay, I believe that's exhibit 220. 221, I apologize.
Are those stated?
Here we go, Judge. Do these records indicate text messages on Mr. Chen's phone from a certain time period?
They do.
And what's that time period?
That was starting at 11:23.
Do they go briefly into 11:25? Okay. So we're going to start here. These are from 11:24. Can you tell the jury who these messages would be from?
Yeah, if there's a contact stored in the phone, it'll put the name with it. If there's no contact, it'll just have the phone number. So when you see both the number and a name, that's somebody that was stored in the phone. So like in this case, it says Nina, I guess it's the pronunciation. There's some other numbers that have no name by them, so it's somebody that's not stored in his contacts. So it keeps a record of the number, but you got to put the name in yourself.
Now, these are coming to Jason's phone, is that correct?
Yes, so over here, it'll tell you red.
That means that they're to him and not from him, is that correct?
Yes.
And does this mean anything to you? We're going to place search. And also, well, first of all, can you tell the jury why we see multiple of the same text message?
Those are group messages where you pick 4 or 5, however many people, and send one message to all of them at once.
And it's going to show up here multiple times.
It does.
So that's not actually 5 messages of you guys running more Warzone. It's just one message sent to 5 people.
Yeah, and if you notice the times, there's blocks of 5 at the same time, so,
Okay.
and the 5 numbers, so,
And for group messages, we would continue to see that.
yes.
Does this mean anything to you? You guys running more Warzone? We're going to play search.
I think, to me, that looks like a game player, and they're chatting with the phones between the group.
Would you agree we're going in reverse chronology with these?
Yes.
So at the bottom here, we have 11/23/2022, and what would that time be?
that would be 11:56 p.m. on the 23rd, and then the dates are getting higher up top.
Just before midnight.
Yes, that's what, 3.5 minutes, 2 minutes, 40-some seconds before midnight on the 23rd.
And the next page, again, we're going reverse chronology. Now, what does that green mean?
That is, I believe, that is for the Android.
But I'm saying now, who's
Oh.
sending these messages?
Oh, Jason is,
And do we know that based on this?
Yes.
But also the position of the text?
yes, it says sent instead of red.
And these are on 11/23/2022.
Yes, and I believe, actually, that phone was, it was on Central Time, so that actually be off an hour.
And off an hour in which way?
It's earlier, so it's actually
106?
106, yes.
106
Chattanooga, if we go with Chattanooga time,
Okay, on the 24th, but
yes.
late night on the 23rd, early morning hours of the 24th.
Yes.
Okay.
This is all Nashville time in this report.
And right here, when you get down to 22, that is the late night on the 23rd, is that correct?
Yes, that actually been 10, so that'd be 11:30 at night.
Okay, and is your opinion still that they're speaking of gaming, is what you said, which would be video games?
Yes, ma'am, I believe it is.
Is 11:23 at approximately midnight, is that after 11:23 at 2:15 in the morning?
No, that's prior to.
No, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry, on the 23rd, yes, it is.
11:23 at 2:15 a.m. is before this, is that
Yes.
correct?
Correct. That's 20 hours.
And from 6 p.m. on 11/23, when Mr. Chen left his apartment and went to Sup Creek Road, how much later is this?
That's what, 5-6 hours?
And then they keep going for pages without Mr. Chen responding. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And are these more group messages to Mr. Chen?
They are, I look at the time column because that tells you real quick, there's 4 of them at the exact same second. So yes, there's some group messages. There's,
Do these messages indicate maybe some video gaming going on?
that looks like the language. I'm not a gamer, but that's would be common.
This is going down chronologically, so we're around 9:30 down here.
Yes, ma'am. 9:30 p.m. Chattanooga.
And is there anything, did you see anything else from Mr. Chen from the time, from 11/23/2022?
I don't recall seeing anything else.
You can see here where we get from 11/23 to 11/22.
Right.
That's it for the state judge.
Roll. Mayor Pro. Yes. Ten-minute break, so we'll be back when that clock says 4:10. Don't discuss your testimony with anyone in the break. Thank you.